Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started just so that we can stay on time today. I want to introduce myself. My name is Darla Dick. I am the Treatment Center Administrator at Manistee Wellness Center. The goal of our forums, and for some of you who have joined us for several or have been with us from the beginning, the goal of our forums are to just provide some education and awareness within our community so that we can better support those in recovery, in need of services, or just family members who have questions, who are dealing with addiction and substance use within their families. But along with that, we have a lot of mixed recommendations, a lot of mixed views, because we have two different populations within our community, and I think that's important to remember. We have those that are struggling and in recovery, and then we have those that are trying to help combat the issues or support individuals in their family. So really tailoring these to both sides is a little difficult, and that's where we kind of pop back and forth and make sure that our content is not only trauma-informed, but also supportive of both of those populations. So at some of our forums earlier on, we did release some local information. Our tribal police department put together some PowerPoints and information on local and immediate issues that we were experiencing in the community. And I can tell you that we had extremely positive feedback from that forum, but we also had some very significant impacts on individuals in recovery and active recovery within the community because of that. And I think that, we talk a lot about these things to remove the judgment and stigma that's attached to individuals in recovery. So when we start talking about more of those local stories, it opens a lot of wounds up for people who are struggling still to maintain that sobriety. So I think that's something that we all just need to keep in mind moving forward, is that, one content might not be perfect for one group, but we have to balance that delicately until we get more comfortable speaking about addiction and healing from that moving forward. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. So today, we're kind of doing a mesh between both real life stories and education all at once. And we've had some plans to bring in, and we've brought in local individuals who are in recovery who talk about their use and what they did to overcome the addiction issues that they were experiencing. So this documentary that you're going to see today is not local. However, it does take you through real life experiences of individuals from multiple social classes and backgrounds. And I want to just caution, because we did have this, happen at some of our other forums too. This is today the documentary that we're going to watch primarily, and if we get time, we'll sneak peeks at the other one, but I will provide you with how to access the other one before we leave. But I want to make sure that everyone's aware that there is the main video that we're going to be talking about and watching today is regarding opioid addiction and heroin use. And in the beginning of the video, you will see real stories, real videos of individuals overdosing. And each story is going to talk about a loss that was experienced within those families. So I want to warn you that, if you've lost somebody recently or have in the past, that this video may be impactful to you as an individual. Okay, so the first and main documentary that we're going to be following today is called Warning, This Drug May Kill You. This is an HBO documentary that I purchased and is used at several educational institutions to train AODA counselors and also provide awareness regards to the issues with opioids. So in the beginning, you will see, again, those real life stories, those real scenes, camera footage, video footage, and they talk a lot about how awareness was not produced to individuals back when OxyContin was introduced in the pharmaceutical area. It was known to be a safe drug, and you'll see some PSAs come up in some commercials that say this is a safe drug to take. There's no worry about addiction or anything like that. And over time, we learned that wasn't necessarily true.
It was the worst nightmare that anybody could have.
So I put my hand around her neck looking for
They
her
were telling me to
pulse.
do chest compressions on her.
His lips were turning blue. He was unconscious. He was barely breathing.
My whole world just like stopped.
There's just a few things I want to touch on before we take a break, and then we'll come back for some more detailed discussion on some of the topics that we saw in the video. But I think the main piece that I want to make sure that everyone kind of thinks about over the break is thinking back to the beginning of the movie and how there was really no awareness and precautions developed when opioids were released into the public. And you can hear a little bit about how it was presumed to be safe, and these huge amounts of prescriptions being prescribed to individuals, and that commonality of sharing medications. And I think about back when I was younger, and if you had it's almost like Advil or Tylenol, I have some, you can take some, and I think here we've heard a lot of stories about that being common with other areas. Other prescriptions that, I went to the doctor for that, I have something left over, I can take it. So, how easy that is to fall into those habits of just not really checking that in your own mind. So I guess I want you to think about that on your break, and also think about, your perception of treatment prior to watching this, and how, you saw Lynn, I believe her name was, who had gone to treatment a total of, I think, 11 times. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means, and from a treatment standpoint, what we see when we see those happening. One of the biggest parts to take away from this video is looking at, how much faith and trust that we put in medical providers. And that's not to say that they don't know what they're doing. They absolutely do. But I think the pain tolerance threshold for each individual is greatly different. So when your provider is prescribing, these are generally recommended doses and prescriptions that they give out, and I think that's something that we need to make sure that we're aware of as a community, of what you can take and what, I know that, if I have a headache, I can take an ibuprofen, whatever level, and it'll go away. If somebody who has higher levels of pain, their dosage is going to be greatly different. So I think those are one thing that you want to talk about within your family, within your community, or working with anybody, that may be at risk of becoming addicted to painkillers. Having those discussions as a family, making sure that it's okay to question your provider. Is this too much for me? I really have a low tolerance for medication. It seems like a lot. And we've had that, and I've had that personally, and I know we've heard a lot about that within the community, that you go get, and this is, excuse me, prior to the clinic, doing a lot of work to really check those, and they do a really good job of making sure that, we've talked to their dental department on, how long their prescriptions are made for. They really do a good job of monitoring that. But that's here, and that's, within our own community, that's not regulated outside. I mean, it is regulated outside, but the checks and balances that we are aware of and the things that we've been working towards here as a community doesn't always happen outside. So I think it's something that we just have to be aware of, that it's okay to ask those questions with your provider. If I take it this long, is there any risk for me to become addicted? If I stop, my pain lessens, finding those drop boxes that are available within the community to really take those medications and dispose of them properly is the next important thing. I think another part that I asked you to think about was the multiple times that the individuals went through treatment. And I think that's something we often hear as providers, as a provider in the community, is, well, they've gone through so many times and they still haven't learned, and that's not working, or this doesn't work, or and you can see that, and we've talked about this at some of our earlier forums, how these substances really hijack the brain and really rework the thought process, the pleasure sensors, those pieces that really make you make your choices in daily life. Those are altered and changed, and it takes time to rework those. It takes time to redevelop your sense of who you are as a person and your choices. And years of addiction and substance use, you've developed certain lifestyles and things to cope and deal, and that can't just change in one time or one shot. I think that's one thing that we really urge people to, when we talk to family members about being okay with individuals maybe not being successful, relapse is a part of recovery. A lot of these individuals need support. And that's our biggest gap when we are transitioning people out of the center, out of treatment, is finding support for them outside. That's not in a home that's abusing, or even if it is having supports where they know that they can go there, they can come away, they can check in with somebody, they can have some stable people in their lives. And those are changes that we've made in our own program. Recently adding in peer supports who can do those check-ins after they leave, and really telling them what's worked for them, what they did. It's really a huge support system that needs to be built, and it's got to be constant. It has to keep going. They talked about Narcan, and I know a lot of you have gone through the Narcan training here locally, and I think the piece that stood out to me that I hadn't heard before this documentary was the withdrawals that happen after an individual has been Narcan. And I know that we have those trainings going on in the community on how to use it, how to get somebody to the doctor, but nobody has really talked about that withdrawal stage after. And we heard that the mother who lost her son, and how Narcan is in essence a blocker. It blocks the high, it blocks those receptors, and when that happens, and they're stable and going through, they get medically cleared and all that, and they're coming back, they don't have that. When that starts to wear off, those withdrawals come back because they haven't. So, her son had chosen to use, and, just being medically unstable at those points when you just went, you almost died, you almost, and somehow, their heart stops beating, and then they're brought back by Narcan. How vulnerable your state of, your body, your heart is very delicate at that point, and then losing again because of those withdrawals. So I think that's a big thing to keep in mind, and to let people know that, watch your loved ones if that happens, and they go to the doctor and they come back, and to stay with them, to make sure that you're supporting them through that really difficult time, and those are usually good times to transition them into treatment or talk to them about treatment, and that's why we will medically clear individuals still after that point to make sure that they're stable to be in a facility that doesn't have a medically detoxed. When I talk about us taking them to be medically cleared again is where, a lot of times they'll go home and they'll use, and the family member doesn't know. You've heard about the son who had it stashed in his room, and they didn't even realize that he had it there. So we will do another medical clearance to make sure that, number one, they didn't, because you can't watch them every minute of every day, and it's a lot. So we check to make sure that they haven't ingested anything else. Or, those first few days of, they may come in and they might be fine if they came right from being medically cleared. But then once those withdrawals kick in and they start moving past having all of those blockers, then my back hurts, or, my heart is just, I just don't feel right. So that's where we'll take them again and make sure, because once those substances start getting out of their body, that's when they start feeling, and it can be dangerous if they don't have, if they have heart condition or blood pressure issues before, and they haven't been taking anything for it the entire time. They've just been relying on, the substance that they've been using. So those are the things we check for to make sure that if they've reached a certain stage and they're still not feeling well, we don't let it be cleared again. And then at the end of the video, you saw where the young girl went to the police station and said that she was engaging in this program called Way Out. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and make sure that individuals here were aware of that program being here at Menominee. And it's not called A Way Out. We have two ladies here that are crisis response workers under that program. Can you say the name of the program for us?
Yechi Power.
And it means?
Like they'll be feeling better. A healing process where they'll be feeling better.
So the two ladies in the front area here both work underneath that program, and it's something that the tribe has worked towards for, I think, about a year now. We talked about getting some assistance for our police officers, both at the station and within the vehicles, on coming up to situations where they know that this house, there's always use, there's always domestic violence calls or intoxication disputes or something like that. And there's nobody really there to talk about treatment or options for support. So it's one system that was developed, I don't even remember the state it was originally developed in, but they thought about putting care workers with police officers and in those stations to help support and answer those questions or just broach the subject if they're there responding to something else. So we have two right now that are actively doing ride-alongs and doing some daytime work as well. They're still training. I think it's been 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So they're very new program. But Manasepia has partnered with social services, family services now. They went through a name change. And the tribal police department. So we have that support, and we've heard, we're going to the police station saying, I want a way out. Well, that's the policies and processes that we've developed and worked with the police department and the other partners involved to say, here's what's going to happen. If somebody comes in off the street and it's active now, correct. And individuals can come into the police department and say, I want help. I need help. Our police workers will help support them and connect them to providers. We have after-hours intake center that we've been evolving and developing over the last few years, so they can connect with them, do that medical clearance, and then get them transitioned into treatment right away. So this other video is called Risky Drinking, and like I said, the one that we watched before was Warning This Drug May Kill You. It's available. You can purchase it on Amazon, or I believe you can purchase it from HBO website. The other video I'm going to show you is available on YouTube, and it takes you through 4 different stories, again, with individuals who have, and this is focused on alcohol. It'll show you 4 different age groups, 4 different scenarios of individuals who struggle with alcohol, and it gives you some good information on just statistics, and talks a little bit more about how recovery is an ongoing process and how relapse is a part of that, and doesn't mean that anyone's failed in those senses. It's just how you pick up and keep going. So.
I try and be good, but at a certain point, maybe after 4 or 5 drinks, then all of a sudden you're like, screw it, and you just don't care.
There's been a lot of close calls for all of us, but we haven't gotten raped or murdered yet.
Alcohol slows down my thoughts. It helps me catch my breath. I don't know what the limit is. I reach a point where I don't remember.
My drinking, it's a tornado. It's doing damage to everything around it.
You don't even know what happened.
My wife, my kids.
It'd be nice if he could drink a little bit less.
In the beginning, you followed the teenage girl who, college, drinking, and I guess the biggest piece to take from that story is that how normal drinking is, especially in the state of Wisconsin. It's almost, attached to every type of football game or celebration or anything like that. So youth, specifically are exposed to drinking and alcohol at very early ages. And you saw by the statistics listed in there that those are really vulnerable times for youth to develop those high-risk addiction to alcohol. So I think that's the big piece that we see all the time is it's everywhere. So when people enter into treatment, they get where they need to be, and again, you've heard it's an ongoing process, right? So when they leave, it's not just I'm fixed, I'm done, I'm ready to go. We stay in contact with a lot of our residents. We'll come back to do aftercare. They stay engaged in AODA. And that leads to the next piece of the story you just saw with the mother, the housewife, and how, can anybody, was anybody else a little shocked at how that whole table of women was talking about the one woman's problem when they all had multiple bottles of wine, but they didn't have a problem, right? The one mother did because she was admitting it and she was talking about it. So support systems, and in the video prior to, you heard that when that mother passed away, none of her friends were really there. And I think that's another big piece that individuals have to get through is once I've gone through treatment and I'm sober, where are my friends? They either don't want to stop drinking or they don't think that they have a problem. They want to, they want to support you in what you're doing, but I'm not changing my lifestyle for you. So it's re-identifying friends, people that are important to you, and really reworking your life to be what you want it to be. And there's a lot of support that's needed during that time. And I think, again, those are the pieces that we're trying to build in within our own program, within the community, is those continued supports. Because once they leave treatment, that's not it. That's not the end. It keeps going. So.
Well, just a comment about the one mom who was like, yeah, I think moderation is a way better plan for her, because then eventually I'll be able to sit on our porch and still drink a glass of wine. Not have to worry about like how selfish that was.
Yeah. And a lot of times you'll hear, and we see that often, with some of our clients that come in, so-and-so doesn't want to come because it doesn't fit in their schedule, or, I'm not a part of that group anymore because I can't do these things. And people start to see who their real supports are, and there's not many there. And a lot of people, another thing, that to think about is a lot of people come into treatment and they've burned multiple bridges before they come in. We have individuals who are just dropped off and left. They need help. I know they need help, but I don't want anything to do with them anymore. And it's easy to say they've wronged me so many times that I'm done and I'm not helping them. And individuals know that. And I think when you hear people say, do they want help? They don't want help. They're not even trying. Well, they are trying, and most of the time they're aware. It's how do I do this on my own because I know I have nobody else to help me. How do I find people that can support me because I know no one else is talking to me anymore. I want to be good. I want to do these good things, but then they continue to drink because they're so caught up in where their life is at and people they've hurt. And how do I get out of this? I mean, it's levels upon levels of just worry and stress. And those are things that we try to work through and develop coping skills for when you're stressed and those types of things. So I think the overarching theme is the support that we need to have in the community, and that's a big part of what these education forums are, so that people understand that it's not just a choice. And I see it, on Facebook. I'll see, well, so and so is they don't even care. I don't know why people are trying to help them because that's the life they chose. They could stop whenever they wanted to. They just choose not to. Or you'll hear people even who are addicted. I don't have a problem. I can stop when I want to. So it's those pieces, that mind and body connection that people need to make and make sure that they're aware of. Number one, when they have an addiction, but also the community. So again, I hear people asking over and over, how can I help? I think the biggest thing is that, we have limited support groups within our community. We have some AA meetings, but I know we had some NA meetings through our program for a little bit, and then that kind of went away. So I think if you hear people asking, and I know some grassroots groups within the community are asking what they can do, it's really starting those support groups, and a lot of those need to be peer-led. They need to be connecting with individuals who are going through the same thing as them, and being able to link to what's worked for them, or just somebody who knows what they're going through. This is my struggle. I'm sober, but I can't find a job because everything that I did prior to my record is horrible, and well, this worked for me. I can do these things, and professionals can do that, but it's linking that personal connection that's important after. So I think that's the biggest thing that I see, and I've heard about some support groups starting, and it's exciting because I think a lot of people will look to, and we've had those questions asked at the agency, and we have these support groups, and it shouldn't be tied to a department or an agency. It's really something that if you know somebody who's sober, who's doing it and is successful, and try and ask them to, if they're interested, we'll definitely, they can come talk to us. We can link them to people who maybe can help them start a support group within the community. I know churches will open their doors. Our facility would be willing to open the doors after hours if people want to come in and start those, but we really, to strengthen that would be a huge step. And like I said, I racked my brain trying to think of things that we could do as a community support. That's a big part that we need. So I hope you found some information useful today, and if you have any questions again on the videos that we showed.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, they got a new AA meeting up in the open on Wednesday night at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, I did see that. I had a whole packet of AA meetings to hand out today, and I left them on my desk before I came. But there is a meeting every night of the week, and I believe they're not all in Keshena, but they're between Keshena and Shawano. So if you'd like that list, I'll have it available like at our front desk, or if you want me to email it to you. But there was one every night of the week that we found that's local. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because that was new this year that they started doing that.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. And like I said, any questions, just let me know.